There's a moment that changes everything. You're sitting in your favorite chair, maybe watching the evening news, and something feels off. Not pain exactly, not something you can point to, just a strange tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. A slight blurring at the edges of your vision. Maybe your hands feel a little tingly, and you tell yourself, I'm just getting older. This is normal. But here's what nobody warned you about, and this is the part that stops most seniors cold, those quiet, easy-to-dismiss feelings. They might be your body sending out an alarm, a real one. And after the age of 60, the window to catch what's happening gets shorter than most people realize. What I'm about to share with you today could genuinely change the direction of your health, so stay with me. Because the symptoms we're going to talk about are ones that millions of American seniors experience every single day, and most of them have no idea what those symptoms are actually pointing to. Blood sugar problems after 60 don't always look the way you'd expect. There's no flashing warning light, no obvious moment where everything goes wrong. Instead, it creeps in slowly. It disguises itself as normal aging. It borrows the symptoms of exhaustion, of stress, of just having a hard week. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Because by the time most people realize something serious is happening, their body has already been struggling for months, sometimes years. Today we're going to change that. We're going to talk about the real warning signs, the ones that are easy to miss, the ones that doctors don't always have time to explain during a 15-minute appointment. And we're going to talk about what you can actually do about it. If any of this sounds familiar to you or to someone you love, I want you to know you're in the right place. Here at Dr. Silas Redford Wellness, our entire mission is to give you the honest, clear, and genuinely useful health information that helps you live better, longer, and with more confidence. If you find value in what we share, please take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing, and it helps us reach more seniors who need this information. Now, let's get into it, because what I'm about to tell you surprises even people who think they already know about blood sugar. Let's start with something most people get completely wrong. When people hear blood sugar problems, they immediately think of diabetes. Full stop. They picture insulin injections and strict diets and hospital visits. But the truth is, blood sugar issues exist on a wide spectrum, and a huge number of seniors are living somewhere in the middle of that spectrum without knowing it. There's a state called prediabetes, and according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 1 in 3 American adults has it, 1 in 3. And the staggering part, about 80% of them have no idea. After 60, the risk goes up even further because the body's ability to regulate blood sugar changes with age. The pancreas doesn't respond as quickly. Cells become more resistant to insulin. The metabolism slows, and the symptoms, they whisper instead of shout. Think about a woman named Margaret, 67 years old, retired school teacher from Ohio. She'd been feeling more tired than usual for about a year. She chalked it up to getting older, to not sleeping as well, to the stress of her husband's knee surgery. She noticed she was thirsty a lot, but she figured she just needed to drink more water. She had some tingling in her feet at night, but she'd had that before and it went away. She was using the bathroom more often, but again, she was 67. She thought that was just part of the deal. It wasn't until her annual physical that her doctor ran a blood panel and came back with a serious expression that Margaret finally understood. She had been pre-diabetic for probably 2 years. 2 years of warning signs, 2 years of her body trying to tell her something was wrong. Margaret's story isn't rare. It's the rule, not the exception. And that's what I want you to really sit with for a moment, because what she experienced, that combination of fatigue, thirst, tingling, and frequent urination, those are 4 of the most common and most overlooked blood sugar warning signs in seniors. But there are more, and some of them will genuinely surprise you. In fact, there's one symptom on this list that almost nobody connects to blood sugar. And when I tell you what it is, I think it's going to completely change the way you pay attention to your body. We'll get there in just a moment. First, let's talk about energy, or more specifically, the kind of tiredness that blood sugar problems create. Because this isn't ordinary fatigue. It's not the kind where you feel sleepy after a big meal or tired after a long day. This is a deep, pervasive exhaustion that settles into your bones. It's the kind of tired where you wake up after 8 hours of sleep and still feel like you haven't rested, where an afternoon walk feels like a marathon, where you find yourself sitting down more, doing less, withdrawing from activities you used to enjoy. A lot of seniors attribute this to depression, to thyroid issues, to simply aging. And while those are all valid possibilities, blood sugar instability is one of the most common and most overlooked culprits. When your cells can't properly use glucose for energy, which is exactly what happens when insulin isn't working correctly, Your body is essentially running on empty even when you've eaten. Every cell is starving for fuel, and that starvation feels like exhaustion. Here's something that researchers found that shocked many in the medical community. Seniors with undiagnosed blood sugar problems often report fatigue as their very first symptom, sometimes showing up years before any other signs appear. Years. Which means if you've been feeling inexplicably tired for a while and you haven't had your blood sugar checked recently, that conversation with your doctor needs to happen soon. And I mean soon. Now let's talk about thirst and urination, because these two tend to travel together. When blood sugar levels run high, the kidneys work overtime trying to filter out the excess glucose. That process pulls water along with it, which means more frequent trips to the bathroom. And as your body loses more fluid, you feel thirsty. You drink more. You urinate more, and the cycle continues. The tricky part for seniors is that this pattern is easy to explain away. Bladder control changes with age. Medications can increase urination. Drinking more coffee or tea can do it too. So this symptom often gets dismissed or managed rather than investigated. But if you're noticing that you're thirstier than you used to be, that you're waking up multiple times a night to use the bathroom, and that this has been going on for weeks or months, please don't file it under just getting older without checking your blood sugar first. The consequences of waiting are much bigger than most people realize. What doctors rarely explain is how dramatically high blood sugar affects the eyes. Most people know that diabetes can eventually cause vision problems, but they don't realize that vision changes can actually be one of the earlier warning signs of blood sugar dysregulation. When glucose levels are elevated, fluid shifts in the lenses of the eyes can cause them to swell and change shape. This leads to blurry or fluctuating vision, sometimes worse in the morning, sometimes better in the afternoon. You might find yourself changing the brightness on your phone screen more often. You might have trouble reading the menu at a restaurant. You might notice that your glasses, which worked perfectly fine 6 months ago, suddenly don't seem right. And here's what's important to understand. These vision changes can happen even before a formal diabetes diagnosis. They can happen in prediabetes. They can happen when blood sugar spikes after meals. If your vision has been shifting without a clear explanation, blood sugar needs to be part of the conversation with your eye doctor and your primary care physician. Now here's the one that surprises almost everyone. Slow healing wounds. If you've noticed that cuts, scrapes, bruises, or sores seem to take longer to heal than they used to, longer than what seems normal even for your age, this is one of the most significant red flags for blood sugar problems, and it's one of the least talked about. Here's why it happens. High blood sugar damages the small blood vessels that carry nutrients and oxygen to your tissues. It also impairs your white blood cells, which are the soldiers your immune system sends in to fight infection and begin the healing process. The result is that wounds heal slowly, are more prone to infection, and sometimes don't fully heal at all. This is particularly serious for seniors because a small wound on the foot or leg that doesn't heal properly can escalate into something much more dangerous. This is one of the main reasons that uncontrolled blood sugar leads to amputations. Not because of one dramatic event, but because of a slow, quiet failure of the body's ability to repair itself. Think about a man named Howard, 72 years old, retired from a long career in construction. Tough, independent, not someone who ran to the doctor for every little thing. He'd had a small cut on his shin from bumping into a table leg, nothing serious. He cleaned it, put a bandage on it, and figured it would be gone in a week. 3 weeks later, it was still there. Red, slightly swollen, not getting better. His wife finally convinced him to see a doctor. That cut was the first real sign Howard had that his blood sugar had been running dangerously high. His A1C came back elevated. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and Howard told me later that he'd been feeling off for a long time, tired, thirsty, foggy, but had never put the pieces together until that stubborn cut forced the issue. Howard got his wake-up call. Not everyone does. Let's talk about brain fog, because this is another symptom that seniors often dismiss as inevitable, as just part of getting older. The inability to concentrate, words that escape you mid-sentence, the feeling of mental cloudiness that makes thinking feel like wading through water. Blood sugar fluctuations are one of the most powerful triggers of cognitive impairment. When glucose levels are too high or too low, the brain, which is extraordinarily sensitive to changes in blood chemistry, doesn't function properly. Memory slips. Focus becomes difficult. Processing speed slows down. Research has shown that chronic high blood sugar is strongly associated with an increased risk of cognitive decline, including dementia. And the brain fog that comes with blood sugar instability isn't just uncomfortable in the moment. Over time, it can contribute to lasting cognitive changes if the underlying problem isn't addressed. There's more. Numbness or tingling in the hands and feet, a condition called peripheral neuropathy, is one of the most common and most distressing symptoms of long-term blood sugar problems. But what most people don't know is that this nerve damage doesn't only happen after decades of uncontrolled diabetes. It can begin in the pre-diabetic stage. It can develop gradually, quietly, starting as an occasional tingling that becomes more consistent, then painful, then a persistent burning sensation, then numbness. Seniors often describe it as walking on pins and needles, or feeling like their feet are wrapped in cotton. Some describe an electric shock sensation. The reason it happens is that elevated blood sugar damages the nerves that run through the extremities, compromising their ability to transmit signals properly. And here's the hard truth. Nerve damage, once it occurs, is very difficult to reverse. Early detection is everything. Because if you catch it while it's just a tingle, you still have time to change course. Unexplained weight changes are also worth paying close attention to. Some people with blood sugar problems gain weight, particularly around the abdomen, because the body, responding to high insulin levels, stores more fat. But others actually lose weight unexpectedly. When cells can't absorb glucose properly, the body starts breaking down muscle and fat for energy instead. So if you or someone you love has lost weight without trying, without changing diet or activity level, that's something that needs medical attention. Unexplained weight loss is one of those symptoms that should never be casually dismissed, and combined with other signs on this list, it creates a picture that demands action. Now I want to talk about something that's rarely discussed but critically important, and that's the role of sleep in blood sugar regulation. Most seniors don't realize that poor sleep and blood sugar problems are deeply connected, and that they feed into each other in a dangerous cycle. When you don't sleep well, your body produces more cortisol and other stress hormones. These hormones raise blood sugar levels. High blood sugar, in turn, causes more frequent urination, which disrupts sleep. So the person waking up 3 times a night to use the bathroom is also making their blood sugar harder to control. The person whose blood sugar spikes at night feels restless and wired even when they're exhausted. Breaking this cycle is one of the most powerful things someone with blood sugar problems can do, and it starts with recognizing the connection. Here's something that doctors rarely have time to explain in a brief appointment. Your meal timing matters as much as your meal content. After 60, the body's insulin response is slower. What that means practically is that large meals, even healthy ones, can cause significant blood sugar spikes. And those spikes, repeated over time, cause damage even if your fasting blood sugar looks normal on a routine test. Many seniors eat 1 or 2 large meals a day, thinking this is better for weight control or simply out of habit. But smaller, more frequent meals, spaced evenly throughout the day, allow the body to process glucose more efficiently. It's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter. And for millions of seniors, just changing the timing and size of meals leads to measurable improvements in energy, mood, weight, and blood sugar numbers within weeks. Physical activity is the other piece of this puzzle that is genuinely transformative. And I don't mean running marathons or going to the gym for 2 hours. I mean consistent, gentle movement, a 20-minute walk after dinner, stretching in the morning, chair exercises, gentle yoga, swimming. When your muscles are active, they pull glucose out of the bloodstream to use as fuel, even without insulin. This is one of the most powerful mechanisms the body has for regulating blood sugar, and it works at any age. A study published in the journal Diabetes Care found that even short walking sessions after meals significantly reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes in older adults. 20 minutes after a meal. That's it. The results were real, measurable, and immediate. Small changes, real impact. And the wonderful thing is that once you begin to feel the difference, the improved energy, the clearer thinking, the better sleep, the motivation to keep going becomes its own reward. But here's where I want to be very direct with you, because this matters deeply. All of the practical advice in the world means nothing if you don't know where you stand. If you haven't had your blood sugar checked recently, including your fasting glucose and your A1C, please make that appointment. The A1C test is particularly important because it shows your average blood sugar level over the past 2 to 3 months, not just what your blood sugar was on the morning of your test. It gives a far more complete picture. And for seniors who are at elevated risk simply by virtue of age, this test should be part of every annual physical. Don't assume that because you feel okay, you are okay. The whole point of today's conversation is that blood sugar problems often feel like nothing until they don't. There's also the matter of medication and blood sugar. Many seniors are on medications for other conditions: blood pressure, cholesterol, inflammation, anxiety, depression, and a surprising number of these medications can affect blood sugar levels. Steroids, certain diuretics, some antidepressants, and even some blood pressure medications have been linked to elevated blood sugar in older adults. This doesn't mean you should stop taking your medications. It means you should be having this conversation with your doctor. Ask whether any of your current medications could be affecting your blood sugar. Ask for a full blood panel. Ask about your risk. These are not aggressive or difficult questions. They're the right questions. And any doctor who takes senior health seriously will be glad you asked. I also want to say something about stress, because it plays a larger role in blood sugar than most people expect. Chronic stress, the kind that comes from worrying about finances, from managing health problems, from grief, from loneliness, raises cortisol levels consistently. And cortisol, as we mentioned earlier, raises blood sugar. For seniors who are living with significant life stress, this is a very real physiological factor, not just an emotional one. Managing stress is not a luxury. It's a medical necessity. Whether that means spending more time in nature, connecting with friends or family, practicing deep breathing, attending a faith community, or finding a therapist, the benefits are measurable in your blood work, not just in your mood. What gives me real hope, and what I want you to carry with you from today's conversation, is this. Blood sugar problems are among the most manageable health challenges in medicine. Unlike many serious conditions, this one responds dramatically and quickly to lifestyle changes. People in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s have reversed prediabetes. They've reduced their A1C from dangerous levels to normal ones. They've eliminated medications they once thought they'd be on forever, not through miracle supplements or extreme diets or heroic willpower, but through consistent, sustainable, small changes. More movement, smarter eating, better sleep, less stress, more awareness. That's the whole formula. It's not complicated, but it requires knowing what to look for, knowing what matters, and making the decision to take it seriously before a crisis forces you to. You have every reason to feel encouraged today, because the fact that you're here, watching, listening, paying attention, means you're already doing the most important thing. You're choosing to be informed. You're choosing to take your health seriously. And that choice, made again and again, is exactly what builds a longer, healthier, more vibrant life. If today's video connected with you, if something I said made you think of yourself or someone you love, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me which symptom surprised you the most, or share something you've been experiencing that this video helped make sense of. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And please share this video with a friend, a spouse, a sibling, a neighbor, anyone over 60 who might not know what their body is trying to tell them. One share could make a real difference in someone's life. That is not an exaggeration. Early information changes outcomes, and together, this community is doing something genuinely important. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourself because you matter, and this is absolutely worth your attention.